From wherever you are watching us in Kenya and around the world, this is the Legends Edition, coming to you live from Broadcasting House in the capital city of Nairobi, Kenya. Top in this bulletin. Service to all. President Ruto winds up his tour of Nyanza with a call to Kenyans to embrace progressive politics. We are sorry. DCI issues an apology over what they term as an image mix-up in the hunt for rogue protesters. And are we ill-prepared? Floods cause havoc in several parts of the country. Raising country's flag high, Kenya bags 4 gold medals in ongoing Eastern Africa Police Chief Games in Kigali, Rwanda. Good evening, I'm Edmund Mudibo, and our sign language interpreter is Byron Abuli. President William Ruto has wound up his 3-day working tour of parts of the Nyanza region with a promise to ensure that all regions in the country are factored into the government's agenda. The president said that under his watch, no region will be marginalized. The head of state asked the region that mainly voted for his main competitor in last year's election to embrace the government's progressive politics.
President William Ruto kicked off day 3 of his working tour in Nyanza by commissioning several government-funded projects in Korea East and West. The president would then proceed to Uriri constituency, still in Migori, for the homecoming and thanksgiving of Uriri MP Mark Nyamita. Nyamita is part of the ODM legislators who have broken ranks with the party in support of the government.
Na walipofika pale Ikulu walikuja kulete mashida zile ziko hapa kwa huyu rais wetu. Na ndio rais amefika hapa kutatua maneno ya maendeleo.
We have made up our mind that we are only going to engage with the government for the betterment of the lives of our people. Mimi najua watatutisha, watasema mambo mingi, but as long as we are doing and our conscience is clear that we are doing something right for our people, sisi tutafanya kazi na wewe.
Kama unaomba ya mvua ikuje, mvua ikifika, wewe unaenda kwa barabara kuandamana. Sisi wote. Mimi ningependa muandamane kuhusu mambo ya mbegu na mbolea. Sio mambo hii ndogo ndogo, mara sijui IBC hapa, mara sava gani, sisi hatuna sava. Barabara mko na shamba, tufanye kazi kwa shamba.
It is here that the president promised that no region will be left out of the government agenda under his watch. The president reiterated that despite political affiliations, all regions will be served equally.
Nyanza will not be left behind as we plan the future of Kenya. And I want to say, for the avoidance of doubt, that as President of Kenya, I will ensure that nobody, no force, nobody takes the people of Nyanza in the wrong direction or takes the people of Nyanza in the opposite direction from government.
The president also had a special message for opposition chief Raila Odinga.
Kwani mama mboga alishindana na mtu ya kitendawili? Si alikuwa anashindana na mimi? Kwa hivyo mzee, tafadhali, kwa heshima kubwa, wachana na kuharibu biashara ya watu. Wachana na kupelekea vita watu wadogo. Wachana na kupelekea fujo watu wadogo. Kama uko na shida kuja uliza mimi. Ama namna gani? Si mimi ndio nilishindana na yeye. Na kama asipojipanga vizuri, tukutane 2027. Ndiye atajua hajui.
In his 3-day tour, the president commissioned various projects in Kisii, Nyamira and Migori counties. Ruth Wamboi for Legends Edition.
Turning now to matters apology, the Directorate of Criminal Investigations, DCI, has issued a public apology on what it terms as a mix-up of images in the ongoing hunt for a group of demonstrators captured on camera destroying public property. The DCI had on Friday published photos of people it claimed broke the law during Monday's protest organized by the opposition. It, however, emerged that after fact-finding by the media that some of the images were file photos captured in previous demos as far back as 2018.
The Directorate of Criminal Investigations has amended a tranche of photos of persons of interest in the ongoing probe into last week's demonstrations. The DCI says there was a mix-up of images in the communication meant to appeal for information regarding the whereabouts of criminal suspects involved in Monday's Azimio demonstrations. According to the DCI, the mix-up was partly occasioned by overwhelming information that it had received from the public through its online platform regarding the reported incidents of violence. The DCI says it continues to appeal to the public for information regarding the whereabouts of the suspects whose images appear on their social media page. Ben Chumba, Legends Edition.
The National Police Service Commission has cautioned Kenyans against assaulting police officers during protests. Speaking in Malindi during a joint Thanksgiving ceremony for disciplined officers, the chairman of the National Police Service Commission, Edmund, said officers will protect themselves from criminals hiding amongst protesters. The sentiments come ahead of demonstrations on Monday called by the opposition leader Raila Odinga.
The annual Thanksgiving service for uniformed officers came in the backdrop of a TAS warning from Inspector General of Police Japhet Koome over the injuring of 31 police officers and destruction of 10 vehicles in Monday's mass action protests. National Police Service Commission Chairperson Eliud Kinuthia warned that anyone who will attack the police during the anti-government protests will face the full wrath of the law, saying demonstrations should be held in accordance with the law.
If you come to them hurling stones, carrying crude weapon, and wanting to attack and injure the police officers, I don't think I will encourage them to respond with rose flowers. You want the police officer to come to you carrying rose flowers when you are carrying a stone to hit them. I think they will exercise their right also to defend themselves and defend the Kenyans as well. And they are well trained. They know when to escalate force and when any amount of force is required. But I encourage those who want to exercise their right to also allow my officers, as they protect all Kenyans and their property, to exercise their right to protect themselves.
His sentiments were echoed by the Commission's Vice Chairperson Alice Otwala, who assured the public that the law enforcers will protect the property of all Kenyans. Meanwhile, the Commission will visit all the counties to assess the welfare of police officers as well as their remuneration.
I have good news for the officers from this region and nationally, that we have since then resolved that matter. And those officers whose salary were reduced or stopped for about some time as we handled the matter in court have now been resolved, and the payroll that ran this last week for this March, they will be able to see their arrears and also see their salary.
Michael Mandiga for Legends Edition, Mombasa County.
Floods continue to wreak havoc in many parts of the country, with residents in most of the areas affected attributing the floods to blocked drainages. Mandera County was one of the areas hard hit, with motorists and other road users appealing to the relevant authorities to build a bridge to join two regions following a downpour that cut off the Mandera-Wajir road. Residents of Katulo were cut off by the floods that affected mobility.
At Kotulu section along the Mandera-Wajir road, residents here are forced to cross to the other side on bare feet after the road was cut off by floods following heavy downpours experienced in the county. Motorists too were not spared by the aftermath of the rains. They say they have been stuck for almost 3 days with no help from both counties of Wajir and Mandera.
Naelekea Garissa lakini kutoka Mandera leo jana. Magaba siku kadhaa naona barabara hawajenga vizuri. Kuna maji. Hatuombi, tunataka serikali itengeneze.
They are now appealing to the government and relevant authorities to find a lasting solution to address the perennial flood menace on their roads each and every rainy season.
Season yote ya mvua ilikuwa namna hiyo tu, mafuriko ya barabara ilikuwa hivyo. Ile barabara ilipitishwa na World Bank itifikie sisi haraka.
Floods have also been witnessed in Narok County, where motorists have been asked to be cautious while plying the busy Narok-Mai Mahiu Highway.
Barabara hapa pamekuwa na shida kuanzia leo asubuhi masaa saa 10. Tungeomba serikali wainue hii lami ili tuweze kuwa na usafiri ambayo haiwezi leta tatushi ama kusomba watu.
Jacqueline Masharia for Legends Edition.
Turning now to political update. Movement for Democracy and Growth Party leader David Ochieng says he will not be intimidated by critics who are opposed to his decision to work with the Kenya Kwanza administration. The Ugenya lawmaker has been speaking against Azimio's calls for mass protests, and in related news, Siaya Senator Oburu Odinga has asked President William Ruto to address issues of concern to Kenyans.
Speaking at Sega Polytechnic grounds in Ugenya constituency during the disbursement of bursary checks, area MP David Ochieng vowed to continue speaking his mind without fear and will not be intimidated by ODM.
So if in building my political path we clash with him, so be it. So be it. Nitaongea kama mbaya mbaya, kama sawa sawa. Because everyone lives their life once. Because it's our age, it's our time. It's our time, it's not his time. His time is long past.
The Movement for Democracy and Growth MDG party leader has been allied to the ruling Kenya Kwanza Alliance and critical of mass protests called by Azimio One Kenya leader Raila Odinga.
Kama unaandamana kwa sababu ya chakula, unaandamana kwamba chakula hakuna, na chakula inatoka kwa shamba. Siku mvua inanyesha, wewe unaacha shamba unaenda maandamano. Akili iko wapi?
Elsewhere, Siaya Senator Oburu Odinga has called on President William Ruto to address the issues ailing the country and not engage in a personal confrontation with Azimio One Kenya leader Raila Odinga.
If Raila has committed an offense as a Kenyan, let the president charge him. Let him be taken to a court of law and let us know which offense Raila has committed against the constitution or against the laws of Kenya. And we shall be satisfied with that.
His remarks comes in the backdrop of President's utterance in Kisii, where he asked the police to deal decisively with anyone bent on breaking the law, regardless of their status in the society. Azimio One Kenya Coalition Party is set to hold the second round of mass protests against the government on Monday and Thursday to pressure the government to lower the cost of living. Vishoki Washira, Legends Edition.
The Kenya Christian Professional says it is partnering with like-minded groups to push for constitutional reforms that will expressly outlaw same-sex relationships in the country. The group says that the ruling by the Supreme Court on the LGBTQ community's right to associate threatens the very fabric of the Kenyan society, hence the need to re-fence existing laws for the greater good of the country.
In a march for a life walk advocating against abortions, members of the Kenya Christian Professionals and Linda Uhai Consortium have expressed the need to protect life in these challenging times.
Just last year, we were able to save 80 babies from abortion, 80 babies and women from abortion. And I don't only stand for myself. There are many organizations here, crisis pregnancy centers here, many pregnant girls, teen girls here who've come to work to say that a baby is not just a blob of tissue, it is a live human being in the womb that is growing.
And we are urging the government, we are urging the relevant bodies in the country to make sure that families are protected. The natural family that is between a man and a woman and a child is protected.
The group, in calling for the respect of African cultural beliefs, said the LGBTQ movement has no place in the Kenyan society.
Without stopping this ill-mannered thing, the LGBTQ, we are not going to live and see the generation to come.
The Kenya Christians professionals said they will collect 1 million signatures to facilitate the process of amending the constitution.
We have held meetings with church leaders and we have come to a consensus on commencing the process of amending the constitution. We are beginning a process whereby we will go to all 47 counties in Kenya to collect signatures from Kenyans who want to manifest their opposition to the homosexual ideology.
Arnold Feather for Legends Edition.
Fear has gripped the Kenya-Tanzania border town of Namanga over cases of the Marburg disease reported in Tanzania. Residents say they want the government's assurance that all is well and that Kenya is ready to deal with any eventuality should the virus make its way into the country.
Kenyan traders at the Namanga border want the government to treat the Marburg disease with the seriousness it did COVID-19. This comes just a few days after Tanzania confirmed that a patient had succumbed to the disease.
Hapa watu wanavuka sana na hakuna ile check-up ya kuangalia mambo ya daktari nini, watu wanavuka kiholela holela. Sasa tunaogopa sasa kwanza kwa hizo ugonjwa kama hizo kuja Namanga, tunaogopa sana.
The World Health Organization has said the virus is similar to the Ebola virus and is highly virulent and can cause hemorrhagic fever and has an 88% fatality rate. Truck drivers, especially those ferrying goods from Tanzania into Kenya, say they are highly susceptible to the disease.
Sababu hii mpaka ni mpaka kubwa, madereva wanatoka nchi za mbali, Afrika Kusini, Malawi, Zambia, Tanzania na hii ndio kivukio kikuu.
Kwa hivyo tunaomba serikali kama kuna njia inaweza tumia ili kutuzuilia hapa mpakani, sababu kuna Watanzania wengi wanaingia kutoka pande hii wanaingia Kenya, na hiyo ugonjwa kama ni ya kusambaza tunahofia kupata hiyo ugonjwa.
The virus can be transmitted to people from fruit bats and spread among humans through direct contact with bodily fluids of infected people, surfaces and materials. Locals say a number of border crossings are porous and may likely complicate surveillance of efforts to monitor the entry of the virus into the country. For Legends Edition, I'm Alvin Kaunda.
Well, it's time now for our first break at about 16 minutes past the hour. But don't go too far. There is more on the other side.
Kupata maisha kama sikiza tune yako, bonyeza *811 *816#.
Maisha ni mafupi, hivyo si vyema kumaliza muda mwingi katika malumbano. Hesabu baraka zako, wathamini rafiki zako na tabasamu ili udumishe amani.
Kupata maisha, bonyeza *811 *816#. *811 *816#.
In the name of Jesus Christ, Mungu anatarajia ukanyange hatua mbele. Ni kwa neema, ni kwa neema, ni kwa neema ya Bwana. wengine wametawaliwa na uchawi. Wakati wao umefika. Wewe umenitazama siku hii ya leo. Neema na kibali cha Bwana kikawe juu ya maisha yako.
He is a fool who has lost sight of what matters. Manta rabaina wahka kawan. Manta werarena.
Huyu contact. Ni msichana umekuwa kitext.
Sir, contact ni contact.
Not if you're making it personal.
Jamaa, kila saa ni kunyambisha.
Nini? Suseme. Watajua kwa nini kachumbari haipashwi moto.
Our transport has been compromised. Me and my team have hit an ID.
Hii ni rescue mission. Kuna police vehicle imechapwa na ID. It's a very simple mission. But stay alert.
Hizi ng'ombe zinachungwa na nani?
Nini? Nimesahau kucheza Loto Moto.
Usisahau kucheza Loto Moto. Shinda milioni 2 kila siku kwenye M-Pesa. Chagua lipa na M-Pesa. Paybill number 757070. Account number andika neno Loto. Kisha weka star na nambari yako ya simu. Weka kiwango chochote cha pesa kuanzia shilingi 50 hadi 2000.
Aulali.
Lipa kisha subiri draw. Welala. Nitakutimizia ndoto zako. Milioni 2 usiamini. Ujumbe huu umeidhinishwa na BCLB.
We're glad you're still watching KBC Legends Edition. Welcome back. Time now to go down to the coast where Mombasa Governor Abdul Samad Nasir has been put to task over the exclusion of former tenants of Buxton Estate from the new 6 billion shillings modern affordable housing scheme, that their houses were demolished to pave way for them. The Senate Committee on Infrastructure, Transportation and Housing grilled the governor following a petition to the House Committee by former tenants.
The planned 6 billion shilling modern and affordable housing project underway at Buxton Estate in Mombasa put the county governor Abdul Samad Nasir in a tight spot after former residents whose houses were demolished complained of being left out in the new project. They filed a petition prompting the Senate Committee on Infrastructure, Transportation and Housing, chaired by Kiambu Senator Karungo Thangwa, to summon the governor and the developer Suleiman Shahbal to clarify.
These are your people. You help them to fight for their rights. Now you're the person seated on the other side now to make sure that their rights are granted.
I think the problem that the governor has had is that having been the MP for this area, he must have been giving political promises. You must talk to the petitioners, and you cannot have the time to appear before the Senate and not have the time to appear before the petitioners.
Abdul Samad promised to arrange for a meeting with them soon to clear the air.
Politics aside and politics, everything else, we are now at this scenario. The houses are down, new units are up. Logically, we cannot reverse back and put back the old houses back there. I think it is imperative to note that the county government, the administration that we are currently running, is discussing these people in the most humane way.
I'm suggesting and I'm requesting that this committee has to work with us hand in hand to find a way to make this affordable housing project work.
On claims by the tenants that they were left out of the housing deal because they could not afford the new modern units, Abdul Swamad said the 60,000 shillings they had paid was an incentive as a discount put in their account when they decide to purchase the units, but only a few of them confirmed their desire to own the units.
The relocation amount was 240. However, the developer, because of the cries then, they agreed that, okay, we'll give in an extra 60,000. It was more or less like an early discount that we will put in your account if you do decide to be able to buy. But they got about 60 on takers on that amount. The rest said no.
The committee gave the governor, Shahbal, and the petitioners 21 days to consult and find an amicable solution to the stalemate. For Legends Edition from Mombasa County, I am Anburu.
Kupata kumpenda mtu kama sikiza tune kwenye simu yako, bonyeza star 812 star 501 hash.
Mapenzi si kumpenda mtu kwa kuwa amekamilika, kwani nawe pia una mapungufu yako. Kwa hivyo mapenzi ni kumpenda mtu na mapungufu yake.
Kupata kumpenda mtu, bonyeza star 812 star 501 hash. Star 812 star 501 hash.
Nini? Nimesahau kucheza Loto Moto. Usisahau kucheza Loto Moto. Shinda milioni 2 kila siku kwenye M-Pesa. Chagua lipa na M-Pesa. Paybill number 757070. Account number andika neno Loto. Kisha weka star na nambari yako ya simu. Weka kiwango chochote cha pesa kuanzia shilingi 50 hadi 2,000.
Aulali.
Lipa kisha subiri draw. Welala. Nitakutimizia ndoto zako. Milioni 2 usiamini. Ujumbe huu umeidhinishwa na BCLB.
Take on Tech, a weekly program that brings you technological debates and concepts. Let us assume we have a young innovator who has come up with an app.
Financial technology and financial services is a very complex game.
Keeping you up to date with the latest tech news both locally and internationally. Apple has lost its position as the most valuable firm amid tech sellers. We also explore different innovations by our very own young innovators. Make sure you don't miss. Tune in every Monday at 10:30 p.m. only on KBC Channel 1.
Sports News is brought to you by Mozart Bet.
Kurumisha ndege. Aviator instant game. Be a daring pilot and earn by how much high you can lift the plane. The higher you fly, the higher your win. The sky is the limit. Mozart Bet.
Naona viatu. Good evening once again. As a big welcome. I'm Topi Liambila with the sports segment of the Legends Edition this evening, as usual. And today, of course, as usual, we have got a Bamba harvest for the sporting fraternity. And just stay tuned, buckle up, be ready for this. Harambee Stars head coach Engin Firat is optimistic that the team will register impressive results against Iran when the two teams face off in an international friendly game scheduled for the 28th of this month in Tehran.
Up. I need them. I need take off. Jump. Up.
Engine Firat remained guarded on Harambee Stars prospects in the match, saying he will be using the encounter to gauge the side against a fancied Iran.
Some people are forgetting which kind of team we are facing. I don't know when was the last time Kenya faced a top team. It is a top team. We are talking about a team where I said also there to make the football fans understand.
Kila mtu I believe are ready for this challenge. It's a good game. Wenye tunaenda kujaribu kurepresent the nation na tutafanya kile wezekanavyo so that tuweze kupata matokeo mema.
Stars will be using the match to prepare for the 2026 World Cup qualifiers set to kick off in 2025 and the forthcoming international friendlies. The 23-man squad is expected to depart for Tehran tonight ahead of the fixture set to be played on the 28th of this month, kicking off at 10:30 p.m. East African time.
I need to build the future also in this way. I cannot live only for today. This is what I'm talking always. We lived all the time, the day. And we never come to the point where we was happy about the last success. So we have now to plan not for today, also for the future.
It's going to be a fast test, against also a good opponent just recently in the 2022 FIFA World Cup. So it's a good test, to know where our level is at the moment. And I believe going forward, then we can make more preparations for the next coming assignments.
The match will be Kenya's first international encounter in 16 months and will be Firat's fifth match in charge since being appointed in September 2021. Bernard Okumu, Legends Edition.
Well, Harambee Stars back after a FIFA international ban. We hope that, the boys are in shape to do wonders. Well, Kenya bagged 4 gold medals today in the ongoing 4th edition of the Eastern Africa Police Chiefs Cooperation Organization Games going on in Kigali, Rwanda. The week-long Interforce tournament has attracted participants from 8 countries in total.
Mary Mora increased medal tally for the National Police Service team after winning the 800 meters race at the Eastern African Police Chiefs Cooperation Organization Games. Wycliffe Kinyamal also bagged a gold in the men's 800 meters category, while compatriot William Ryan came second. In long jump men, Isaac Kuselel Kirwa and Ruto Kiplagat won gold and bronze respectively. The Rwanda National Police volleyball team won gold after beating Kenya GSU team 3-1 in the finals played at BK Arena. The event was supposed to have been held in 2020, but was suspended due to COVID-19 pandemic. The week-long Interforce tournament has attracted participants with about 1,114 athletes competing in 13 games and 83 teams drawn from 8 countries. Participating countries include Uganda, South Sudan, Burundi, Ethiopia, Kenya, Sudan and Rwanda. Nora Mwangi for Legends Edition.
Ichipe ya Kenya.
Nairobi Water have successfully defended the National Handball Women's League title for the 6th straight season with a 100% record, having won all the 21 matches they have played so far. Cereals have written the same script in the men's league and are champions in waiting as they await the final matches of the season before taking the title home.
Nairobi Water women and Cereals men handball teams are once again conquerors of the game of handball in Kenya after the two teams dominated and won their respective leagues, both with 100% records. Nairobi Water have won all their 21 matches this season and scored more than 800 goals in the process, on their way to a 6th straight title, while Cereals men have won all their 17 matches and again scored more than 600 goals. Nairobi Water will face Cereals women in their last match of the season with an already outstanding record of conceding just over 200 goals, a record of conceding only once for every 4 goals they score. They faced Ulinzi in their second last match at the Nyayo National Stadium and narrowly won 28-25 as they wait to face Cereals in their final game of the season. Despite the narrow margin, Nairobi Water dominated the encounter with Faith Mikala leading the on-target accuracy that saw her top the score sheet with 6 goals, 1 goal better than Brenda Musambai. Melvin Akinya and Brenda Arivitsa netted 4 times for Nairobi Water as the other goals came courtesy of Cecilia Katheli hat-trick and a brace each from Michelle Oyo and Marina Andala. In reply, only 5 players of Ulinzi netted in that game. Sarah Wasike netting 14 times, Euphrasia Mukasia scored 5 goals, and Karen Lutengeya 4 goals. Medina Kerubo and Sharon Chelule scored a goal apiece. Their final game of the season opponent Cereals thrashed Daystar 35-16 in preparation to try and stop Water from ending the league with a 100% winning record. Kenyatta University also won their game 37-25 against Amazon. In the men's encounter, Spartans lost 37-30 to Technical University of Kenya.
A total of 30 players have been selected to feature in the men's and women's national teams that will feature at the inaugural edition of Festival World Cup, scheduled from the 21st to 27th of May in New Delhi, India. The games have attracted 9 teams.
The trials attracted 5 men clubs and 4 women clubs who faced each other in a round-robin format, with Sestoball Kenya Federation CSK using the one-day championship to select 15 female and the same number for the men's teams in readiness for the global championship.
We started this game in 2019 and we've been playing it every countries, and we had some challenges, but from there is a time we wanted to go to Argentina. Unfortunately, we could not make it because according to Kenya, we didn't have qualification to make an international tournament.
Despite the fact that the sport is barely new in the country, having been introduced 5 years ago, Kenya hopes to leave a mark at the global championship.
Just confident that we are going to present Kenya. It's the first time going to the World Cup. It has never happened before. So we are very excited and really motivated.
I'm very sure that we are going to win, and we are going to do the perfect we can do.
Sestoball combines 3 sporting disciplines, namely basketball, netball and handball, played by 2 teams composed of 6 players each.
Z-Tech Sparks women's basketball team thrashed Kenyatta University 70-26 in the Women's Kenya Basketball Premier League match played at the Ulinzi complex. In another match, Equity Dumas beat Ulinzi Warriors 58-57 at the same venue. Take a look.
Medina Okot was the top scorer for Z-Tech after scoring 15 points, with Evelyn Nabuire and Christine Akenye contributing 14 and 13 points apiece. The Sparks dominated the first quarter, outscoring their opponents 17-7. The university side did not relent as they further won the second and third quarter 18-8 and 24-3 respectively.
We want to push the girls, definitely, to keep up the fitness, keep up the focus, so that we can step into the playoffs at a good position.
In today's match, we lost. Let's say not because of the skill of the watch. For one, it's size and numbers. We are a very small team. We don't have the numbers. So Z-Tech was rebounding us. They were shooting on us. They were finishing under the rim on us because we are short. But that's not an excuse. So it's a learning experience.
One of our best players had an injury and we were not able to play her today.
Meanwhile, Equity Dumas narrowly beat Ulinzi Warriors 58-7 in an entertaining men's Premier League match. Ulinzi won the first quarter 15-12, while the Dumas rallied from behind to tie the second quarter 13-13. Equity came back stronger in the second half, winning the third quarter 25-10. Despite Ulinzi winning the fourth quarter 19-8, Equity held on to claim the narrow victory. For Legends Edition, I'm Sela Onyango.
In swimming, a team of 10 swimmers have been selected to represent Kenya at the Commonwealth Life-Saving Championships to be held in Canada in September of this year. The team was selected during the National Life-Saving Championships held today at the Kasarani Aquatic Complex.
Philip Kipkazi from the Sports Kenya team won boys 50 meters upper fin swim, while Shabano Hamid and Amondi Sian took second and third place respectively.
When you go competing in the international stage, it's tough. It's not even easy. So the thing is, I want to represent Kenya the way other athletes represent Kenya, obviously.
In the girls 16 and over 50 meters obstacle swim, Adenyo Lamia from Rooster Swimming Academy clocked that 1 second ahead of Andeki Stefani and Sitati Priska, who came in second and third respectively.
It feels really great. After all this hard work, I feel like this is necessary to show off like how far I've come. Chosen for the national team, and then also to go to Canada with the national team and prove that Kenya can do well in life-saving.
In the boys 16 and over 50 meters obstacle swim, Lucas Omondi emerged victorious while Njoroge Wanjiru won in the girls category. The event attracted over 100 swimmers from different counties.
We are going to have that team of 10 to 12 and we are going to put them under the training, either here in Kasarani where they'll be training either twice a week. We expect very best for them, but we know very well the competition will be hard because Commonwealth, we are expecting to swim with England, South Africa, Australia, Canada, and those are well-renowned teams. So we will try our best.
10 swimmers who have been selected will represent the country in the Commonwealth Life-Saving Championship, slated for 13th and the 17th of September in Canada. Kenya Lifeguards Federation and Luster Swimming Academy were among the team who took part in the competition held at the Kasarani Aquatic Stadium. King Orimwangi for Channel 1 Sports.
In football, 29 coaches have graduated at the CAF D level following the completion of a coaching course held in Kariobangi, Nairobi County. The coaches include former internationals Francis Onyiso and Ezekiel Odera, as well as current players Moses Otieno and Lucy Njeri of FC Talanta and Kayole Starlets, respectively. 5 ladies attended the training, including Lucy Njeri, Grace Nyambura, Anna Pondi, Susan Joki, and Joan Nanjala. The closing ceremony was presided over by FKF CEO Barry Otieno, alongside FKF NEC Nairobi Region Michael Mashua. FKF Nairobi East Chairman Amos Wakili also attended the forum. The course was under the tutelage of Jerim Owuor.
Nafikiri kwa saizi pia kusudi nifanye course FKF, nafikiri wamerudi kwa ile grassroots kuangalia kuimpact kutoa wachezaji kutoka grassroots ndio wapande juu kwa national level. So pia mimi kufanya hii course nilionelea ni vizuri niingie kwa hiyo system na niweze kusaidia wale wachezaji wa chini ambaye hawana knowledge.
Personally nimedecide kufanya hii coaching at least niweze kupata hiyo knowledge ya coaching side. I've been doing it hata nikicheza, so mimi na feel need kupata hii knowledge poa ndio at least di transform kwa mavijana wa mtaa na hata kwa shule, bora tu ni plan life after football.
Now, the University of Eldoret and Life University from Atlanta in the United States have signed a memorandum of understanding that will see a sports medicine program being introduced at the institution. Outgoing Vice Chancellor Professor Teresa Kenga says Life University will help develop the curriculum that will spur growth in the discipline and benefit sportsmen and women locally from the region.
Friday was the last of the 6 days of celebrating 10 years of Charter Award by the University of Eldoret, a milestone marked under the theme 10 Years of Knowledge and Innovation. The university's founding Vice-Chancellor, Professor Teresa Kenga, says the institution has made significant steps during her tenure, including collaborations with other institutions of higher learning to conduct research in various fields, in addition to infrastructural development.
The infrastructure in the university was not the best, and we've worked hard as a team to upgrade the infrastructure in the university by putting up new buildings, lecture halls, hostels, and a library.
The VC has also revealed that the institution is poised to introduce a program on sports medicine, which will be rolled out in collaboration with Life University from the United States.
As you may realize, we are in the University of Eldoret, and Eldoret is a city of champions. And with the city of champions, we have so many sports people who need to be trained, and there has been an outcry or a need for the program. It's out of a need, and it's going to be a unique program in that we are going to run it collaboratively with a more life university that is well experienced in that.
Professor Akenga at the same time appealed to the government to consider increasing university funding to allow for more research on various fields of development.
What we are saying is we need more because the personal emoluments are very high. For example, at the University of Eldoret, we are spending 82% of the recurrent budget on personal emoluments, and you are left with only 14% to do your other operations, which is so minimal.
For the Legends edition from Kisumu County, I am Wycliffe Okage.
On continental soccer, Guinea increased their chances of qualifying for next year's Africa Cup of Nations in Ivory Coast after recording a 2-0 victory over Ethiopia in a Group D match played last night at the Mohammed V Stadium in Casablanca, Morocco. The win puts Guinea on top of the Group D alongside Egypt after 3 matches.
Dominant Guinea dispatched Ethiopia by 2-0 in a Group D of the 2023 AFCON qualifiers match played yesterday night at the Mohammed V Stadium in Casablanca, Morocco. The Silly National opened the scoring in the 39th minute through Franco Escamano, who connected Ilax Moriba cross to lead into the break. Lille striker Mohamed Bayo tapped in Isiaga Sila shot from close range in the 73rd minute to put the match behind the East African side to cruise to a 2-0 victory. It was a second win for Guinea, who went joint on top of Group D alongside Egypt with 6 points after round 3 matches of the 2023 AFCON qualifiers after the Pharaohs beat Malawi by the same scoreline in Cairo yesterday. Wali Antelopes of Ethiopia will host Guinea in the return leg set for next Monday evening in Casablanca, Morocco, as only victory will ensure they remain in contention to book their slot in next year's AFCON in Côte d'Ivoire. The match was among the over 8 games for both 2023 AFCON Under-23 as well as next year's AFCON qualifiers being played in the Royal Kingdom of Morocco.
Guinea's 2-0 win over Ethiopia in Group D clash of the African Cup of Nations qualifier here at the Mohammed V Stadium increases Silly National's chances of qualifying for next year's AFCON as the two teams meet again on Monday for a return leg where Ethiopia will play host. Reporting for KBC Channel 1 from Mohammed V Stadium in Casablanca, city of Morocco, I am Dismas Otuke.
And that's all we had for you this evening from the sports desk, courtesy of Okumu, Nora Baxam, Fred and the team. I'm Topi Liambila saying stay with KBC, your true sports partner for the following week until we meet again next Saturday. It's been a great evening. Hope you enjoyed what we offered, and remember, throughout the week, plenty of sports on KBC.
Sports News was brought to you by Mozart Bet.
Nafasi yako ya kuwa mdosi wako. Jiunge na washindi tufanye biashara. Kuwa mshindi. Mozart Bet.
This is the way we're going to invade your sitting rooms once every week. Allah.
And this is what we mean. The originals. Lipua Lipua. Veve Productions. Orchestra Kiam. And so much more.
Merindimo ya ngoma za rumba kutoka pembe zote za Afrika. Zilizopepea, zinazopepea kwa kiasi ambacho hutang'atuka ng'o from your sitting room.
Wow, Buzi Buziana, Scholar Miel, Betty Beast, Fifi Mofude, among others.
Bridge over Congo with Simeon Mfumu Kimbangu.
And Winnie Marie-Jose on KBC Channel 1.
Zambia Sambela Kate, Ako Sambela Nani.
God does not worship. To whom will he worship?
thank you for being part of Save a Life organization. We're indeed transforming lives. You have seen, what Dr. Mesha Konguti did to Mogaka. Huge transformation. You have seen Eunice Mwende, huge transformation. Jane from Nyamira, huge transformation. My boy from Turkana, you can see him in after, huge transformation, and many more. Eunice from a place called Kirinyaga. Eunice, thank you for your support. This is what Save a Life is doing. We have saved over 1,066 and many more. We have also built houses. We have also, started small businesses for many. And thank you for your support.
Known as the silent killer.
When you have high blood pressure, it just means that the tension within the major blood vessels is high.
It shows no symptoms.
So you need to be completely relaxed in a quiet room, preferably, and then seated on the chair upright with your back supported, okay? And then your feet must be flat on the ground.
But what are some of the factors that can lead to high blood pressure?
Abnormalities in the formation of some of the major blood vessels. Some hormonal disorders also lead to hypertension.
The place of diet and exercise.
Reduced saturated fats, but more of what we call unsaturated fats, which are found in things like nuts, olive oil, avocados, okay? So those ones have healthy fats.
Well, that does it for the Legends edition this evening. But don't go too far, because coming up next is the Living Legends edition interview with Honorable Dr. Shem Ochuodho with Fayaz Qureshi. Thank you for the privilege of your company. Stay well, stay safe.
Welcome to the Living Legends. I am Fayaz Qureshi. In this edition of the Living Legends, we speak to a man whose contribution to Kenya's online scene may have been forgotten. 30 years ago, he became the father of internet to Kenya. He went on to consult in the same field for the republics of Rwanda and South Sudan. To most people, he's known as the former MP for Rangwe constituency. On the Living Legends tonight, we speak to Honorable Dr. Shem Ochuodho. Dr. Shem,
thank you.
It's an extreme pleasure to have an absolute legend like you on the Living Legends as our guest.
Thank you.
Asante sana.
Thank you, Quresh. Thank you, KBC. I'm greatly honored. I didn't think I merit to be considered a legend, but thank you so much.
In our eyes, you do. And this is a tribute to you.
I appreciate it.
Now, let's start off with your early life and education.
Right. I went to a primary school in Homa Bay called Nyawita Primary School. I had the privilege of jumping from standard 1 to standard 3 for two reasons. One, in our time, those from primary 3 upwards would go back to school in the afternoon. Standards 1 and 2 would go, and then at lunchtime they go home.
Right.
I think I was so much in love with school that I would request the teachers, can I come back? So for some reason, the teachers allowed me to go to standard 3 after standard 1.
Extremely dedicated at a very early point in your life, huh?
That's right, yeah. And I should say I also went further for standard 7. I scored 3 straight A's.
Wow.
Which was the first time that school, Nyawita, was getting somebody with 36 points at our time. And I think it took about 10, 12 or so years after me, there was somebody else who I think got 36 points. So yeah, I enjoyed being in that school, and I keep in touch with the school. And then thereafter, I went to secondary school. Something interesting here happened. With 36 points, I would go to any school in Kenya that I wanted. But a rural headmaster then, as they were called, now I think principals, didn't think anybody would get marks to go to Alliance. So Alliance wasn't among my choices. My number one choice, because you had to take a national school, was Mawego Technical School. Was my first choice. The second and third were local schools, Migori, I think, and Sawagongo, if I can remember, in Nyanza. Actually, Mawego, I think, was number 4. Because you had to take one national school. Obviously, when it came to intake, the national schools were taking people first. And that tells me also something, that we haven't handled technical education very well in this country. I was happy that I've been through and through technical, because after Mawego, I went to Mombasa Polytechnic for my advanced levels studies, what was then called A-levels.
Right.
I know most people know Kenya Polytechnic, Mombasa Polytechnic, but for diplomas and higher national diplomas, in our time, they used to offer, at least Mombasa Polytechnic was offering A-levels.
Okay, interesting.
Then after Mombasa Polytechnic, I was admitted at the University of Nairobi to do architecture. I didn't quite like, I missed engineering with 1 point. And I wanted to do electrical engineering. So I was told, if you go instead to do science, physics, and you do well in first year, second year, you can shift over to the Faculty of Engineering. And I worked so hard, I think I left another record there. I think we had about 12 subjects. In first year, I had 10 A's and then 2 B's. So I should have naturally, in the second year, changed over to electrical engineering.
Right.
But by that time, I'd become so much in love with physics, I even forgot. I just remembered about 2 months later that my plan was to shift, but it was already too late now to shift. Those days, people could change faculties on certain conditions.
Right.
So I did, of course, we had a stint in 1982. We happened to have been state guests. I was a student leader. I was incarcerated for 10 months. And immediately we were released. We were put to do exams. I got an upper second, and I got admitted to do masters, and I got scholarships 2 at the same time, to do masters in physics and also to do masters in electrical engineering. So my time to now transit to electrical and electronics engineering had come. So I did my masters at the University of Nairobi. And then I immediately was absorbed also as a tutorial fellow. I think first as a graduate assistant at the university. As a tutorial fellow, then I got a scholarship, British Council. Then it was Overseas Development Assistance, ODA, to study in the UK. I went to the University of York, where I did my PhD in software engineering. But something I should say, while at the University of Nairobi, I think we were the second lot with Professor Gerald Chege. We were the second to graduate in masters. Before us, only one person had graduated with a master's from electrical engineering, University of Nairobi, and I think it took her 8 years. We did it in 2.5 years, which was also a record.
Wow.
So we both went to the UK with Gerald. We went slightly to different routes. So I went into software engineering, particularly for telecom systems. And I did some assignments with British Telecom, Telecom Australia, Marconi Telecom, Italy, and so on.
So it was a great progression.
Absolutely.
From engineering to software
That's right. And in the process, I should say I was very likely the first Kenyan software engineer. And
the first Kenyan software engineer?
Correct.
That's historic.
Well, my great pleasure.
That's why we have you here.
Thank you so much, Quresh. And then I went for postdoctoral fellowship in the US, University of California, Berkeley. I think the rest is history. I was happy to come back home in around 1992.
That was a lot of work. Was there any time to play?
No, well, a little bit. I used to play tennis. Actually, while at the University of Nairobi, at one point I was captain of lawn tennis. So there was a bit of that, but a lot of time was spent reading.
Reading. Well done, well done.
Thank you.
Now, you were among... Now, the father of internet.
Right.
Okay?
Sure.
It was actually tested at your house.
Yes, internet came through one of my
Not many people know that.
Yeah, I know a little.
Facts are being distorted.
A little bit of distortion happened. I think the past 17 or so years I've largely been outside the country. In fact, apart from Rwanda and South Sudan, I've had opportunity to do things in about nearly 40 other African countries for a short term, 2 weeks, up to a maximum of about 13 years that I've done in South Sudan. So
that was 30 years ago when the internet was first tested, and that was at your residence.
To be precise,
with a few technicians around you.
That's right. We had a few engineers I was working with. It was actually 26 years to be exact.
Okay.
Because it happened on the night of 24th October 1995. So it will soon be, we celebrated 25 years of internet actually in Africa.
So tell us more about this. How exciting was this whole thing?
It was extremely exciting because while in the UK and the US and Australia, because after US, I did some further research work with what was then called Telestra or Telcom Australia. But I decided to come back home, and against all manner of advice. Why do you go back home? You basically become a citizen of the world.
What was the reason?
I love
patriotism?
Nationalism? Patriotism.
Giving back, because we're actually getting a brain drain now.
Actually, we have a brain circulation because I'm heavily involved in matters of diaspora at the moment.
Right.
But at that time, it was patriotism, but also I felt that we needed to uplift our people. So coming back home, I realized there was no internet, and then I said, okay, how on earth in today's world can somebody do meaningful research without internet?
Without the internet.
So I started walking the journey. It wasn't easy, but we were happy. Through the support of US National Science Foundation, NSF, and again the ODA, UK Overseas Development Agency, they were able to support us, and we got internet. Working with our engineers, we had to spend nearly 28 hours just trying to connect wires to talk to Oregon in the US to get Kenya connected. But it was even more interesting before that, Quresh, because we used to have what was called dial-up. And when we started, and then I was like the main server that was carrying all Kenyan information, and people would dial through the server in my house and collect their mails. Soon after, UNEP also started offering a service like that. But when we started, we used to dial once a week. Every Wednesday midnight, we would pick all mails destined for Kenya. And then people would dial our server whenever they want. It was like a mailbox, a post office.
Wow.
They pick and drop. Store and forward was the system. And then from once a week, we moved on to 3 times a week, and then once a day, and then 4 times a day, and then every hour, until eventually we got into what now we call TCP, which is real-time internet. So that's the journey we walked. When we used to poll, we used to call through London, an organization called Greenet. And of course, often I used to travel a lot. So my wife herself became a specialist because now somebody had to keep operating the server. Okay. In fact, one joke is my youngest daughter, who was a toddler then, would come and grab me from the computer room saying, "Dad, if you don't have anything interesting to do, come we play," you know. For her, that was more exciting to play than to do fidget with the wires.
Yeah.
Part of my going to politics actually was not because that was my calling. It was because I felt I needed to push the technology agenda in the country. In fact, even before the internet, as chair of Computer Society of Kenya, then it was called Kenya Computer Institute, I had this onerous task to convince also not only people in government, but even the corporates that computers were good for the country. The older members of a society may recall a past president, late President Moi, God rest his soul in peace. said in a rally in Nakuru that Kenya does not need computers, they're going to take away jobs. So part of our work as professionals was to convince government that after all computers weren't so bad. Even banks, initially computerizing was a nightmare, but I'm glad we went in that manner. The same could have been said of also the internet. Even though I was voted Father of Internet in the year 2000, when I was accepting the award, I did attribute it to three very special Kenyans. I don't think internet would have happened then had it not been for them. Mika Cheserem was then governor of the Central Bank.
Central Bank, yes.
Dr. Ambassador Benjamin Kipkulei was Kenya's ambassador in the US at the time.
Right.
And Brigadier Wilson Boynet then was the head of what today is like NIS. Okay.
So they were quite instrumental.
They were extremely instrumental, because at one point the governor did visit the ambassador in the US. In that time, and before he came back home, and before internet happened, if you were outside the country, for me being in the UK, we would only get newspapers like on Jamhuri Day, when we would travel from York to London to the High Commission for Jamhuri Day celebrations, and then you find a 2 or 3 month old newspaper, or unless you called home, but it was very expensive to call. So how we got internet to start around 92 conversations, because we also rallied Kenyans together. Before then, it wasn't possible. Maybe this is when people talk of 5 of us. There were 6 of us who were outside, who created what became KenyaNet, but that was more for the diasporas outside. There were 3 members, Isi Makatiani, Ouma Gor, and Gakio Karanja at MIT in the US. There was and still is Dr. Matunda Nyanchama in Canada. And there was and still is Dr. Otieno Mbari in Finland, and I was in the UK. We were all IT specialists.
Okay.
Let's call ourselves informaticians, because my students often ask me, what do we call ourselves? They're engineers, doctors, accountants. We're informaticians. So the 6 of us were informaticians. So we started exchanging information on the internet. When somebody calls home, you share. That gave birth, fast forward, to what became KenyaNet, later Kenya Community Abroad, and now Kenya Diaspora Alliance. So, well, that was the journey how we got internet in. Right.
The regulatory framework.
Yes.
Has it changed?
Okay. Yes, I was mentioning...
And what are the major game changers right now?
Absolutely. Part of why I went to Parliament was to push the technology agenda. I remember once we had a workshop with members of Parliament then. 32 attended. And strangely, 31 were from the opposition then. Right. Only one from government was the minister then, late Dr. Zachary Onyonka was Minister for Science and Technology, attended. He opened the workshop. One of the MPs, or let me say 2, inspired me to get into politics, the late Dr. Ukio Mbaka and Honorable Alo Geka. Dr. Mbaka said, Shem, these things you are telling us sound very interesting, but they don't mean much to us. Maybe if you were one of us, policymakers would listen to you. So that's when I started having ideas of getting to Parliament. Unfortunately, in 96, 97, I was elected to be Rangwe MP. My greatest contribution while in Parliament was the 2008 communications law. This is the law that liberalized the telecom sector. Let me say that 2 years before, in 1996 and 1997, the draft bill before Parliament was shot down. Then the late Ntimama William was Minister for Communications. Before him, I think Mheshimiwa, former Deputy, now Right Honorable Prime Secretary, Musalia Mudavadi was in Communications. But twice Parliament refused the communications law because the MPs were saying we don't want to sell away our sovereignty. So when I got to Parliament, I was able to first rally a group of 6 MPs that eventually also gave birth to Muungano wa Mageuzi. In English, that's a National Rainbow Coalition.
Right.
But these 6 convinced another 22 MPs. We were calling ourselves progressives. who said, no, this is good for the country. And they moved the other members of parliament to pass the communications law.
Yeah, and it's helping the generation of today.
Absolutely.
Now, you've consulted for the Republic of South Sudan on matters technology.
Yes.
What are your experiences working for the world's youngest nation?
Pretty interesting. You will allow me to talk a little more about Rwanda, partly because of I still have connections. When you're a civil servant, you are a bit constrained in what you can say. But as a former senior advisor...
Shall we do South Sudan and then we'll talk extensively about Rwanda?
For South Sudan, my greatest contribution, and I should say, despite being the world's youngest country, it's only South Sudan, apart from the United States, which has got a telephone code that has got a meaning. Why am I saying this? The USA and Canada is +1 because it's America.
Right.
South Sudan, you know, Kenya, we have +2454.
Yeah.
What does it mean? Uganda, 256. What does it mean? 255 for Tanzania. What does it mean? South Sudan is 211. The year of independence, 2011.
Wow, okay.
So that's been it. The other major achievement was South Sudan is .ss. That's also something we pushed hard for, having secured .ke, which was the Kenyan domain, which administered for about 10 years before handing over. The South Sudan, there was quite a bit of resistance. There is, I think an underground movement, .ss, and that's being awarded by International Standards Organization. So again, we used quite a bit of the connection we have globally in the telecom and the standard sector to secure that.
You were the ICT advisor to Rwanda's Minister of State in charge of energy and communications.
Right.
And CEO of the Rwanda Information Technology Authority.
Correct.
RITA, Rita.
Correct.
Tell us more about this.
I greatly enjoyed. I've had the privilege to work for 4 different heads of states, different countries, including Rwanda. And I really enjoyed working for President Kagame because he's very tech savvy. And he's a go-getter. 3 things I learned from him. One is humility. He would tell us, I meet wazungus or donors, I call them sir. At the end of the day, I get what I need for the Rwandese people. I'm still the president. The second lesson I picked from him was looking at the big picture. Don't worry too much about little things, and don't worry about things you have little control over. The third final lesson I got from him was sense of urgency. He would say Rwanda has so much been left behind the world that we have to move 3 times, at least twice, as fast to catch up with the rest of the world. And when the new administration was elected in Kenya, I thought President Dr. Ruto, who I was privileged to serve with in the 8th Parliament as well, was reading from same script. I saw a retreat being held outside. President Kagame used to do that. Once at the beginning of the year, they would go out with the top government officials. I was probably the only foreigner who joined, given my level, the level of office I was holding.
I think President Kagame has been such a role model for the whole of Africa, hasn't he?
Absolutely.
And you having met him personally must be an amazing experience.
Absolutely. And we used to brief him very often, at least once every quarter.
Yeah.
And he wanted results, and he would take decisions on the spot as long as you had a good thing to do for Rwanda.
So moving on, you think our government is heading in the same direction?
I thought it was. It still remains to be seen. When I saw the retreat take place, and I saw the president reprimand his cabinet secretaries with President Kagame, and in Rwanda, ministers come 5 minutes before meetings, and that's known. So I saw a bit of that. I'm hoping that we continue reading from that script and give some results so that we lift Kenyans out of poverty. Of course, Rwanda is the only country on earth where there are more women MPs than men.
Oh.
Yeah, so gender is a major issue. There are many of us who are lucky to get computers into schools. When Kenya was trying to get laptops to schools, I thought it was being done the wrong way, but we didn't have opportunity to give in.
It's been an extreme pleasure hosting Dr. Shem Ochuodho on the Living Legends. We can confidently call him the father of the internet in Kenya for being responsible for the internet test run in the country. He has consulted for the governments of Rwanda and South Sudan. Currently leads the Kenyan Diaspora Alliance and has been Rangwe MP. Thank you, Dr. Shem Ochuodho, for being our guest today. I am Fayaz Qureshi. Thank you for watching.